Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. And it's sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
Way to sell it. DJ and PK got a couple questions up on our Facebook page. Is it just that Utah's become a football school now at the expense of basketball? We've been talking about who should the Utes hire. They've had 4 coaches. None of them have ended the way people wanted or hoped. Haven't had the glory along the way.
Most of all them.
Yeah, right. Haven't had the Ute fans had the glory and the tournament runs that Ute fans want, expect, cherish. But is it just because times have changed? Are you better off putting the money it would take to succeed in basketball into football?
You know, we have Josh Grant on, and he says it's a basketball school. Well, it was a basketball school. When we first got here, there was no question it was a basketball school. But football is king. Not just here, football anywhere.
It's driving realignment. It's making leagues. It's breaking leagues. It's all football.
Right. In our country, football is where it's at. There's no doubt about that. And I wonder, if you ask Ute fans, strictly hardcore Ute fans, problem is you put that out there and then Cougs jump in. We understand that.
Here's Greg, a football school that finished 14th place in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could win, if you could only pick one, football or basketball to win,
you would pick football.
But Utah has such a great basketball tradition. It's better than BYU's, which is not bad, but it's better. What would it be? For me, personally, there's no question to be football.
Right.
College football is my favorite sport. I'm in love with it. Even as they keep trying to screw it up,
yes.
I'm still, as we get toward the summer and we start working towards media days, and we start, I get a little, the third week of August, it gets a little tedious. But then the season is here, man. And the Utes this year, they're playing in the Rose Bowl against the UC Los Angeles Bruins. It's not a cupcake game. Boom. I'm jacked right from day one. Right? Love the sport.
Jeff, you're just realizing that they have not been a basketball school for decades.
That's not true.
2. 2 decades they've been a football school.
Okay, but in those 2 decades, they have 2 Sweet 16 appearances.
Yes. Fact.
You got 2 BYU
and that's
in the last 40-plus years.
That's the whole thing, and I'm sure there are hardcore fans out there. Enough with the sports radio decision, football or basketball. I want both.
Right, but then...
And then you fans, amen.
Okay,
give me both.
Sure, I want it all.
If you have
but what's available, the money?
Money to run both.
Yeah.
Right.
What's it going to be? Yeah, if you can do both, that's awesome. And that one year, they had Smith, the number 1 pick in a draft, and Bogut, the number 1 pick in a draft. Yeah, that's great.
But it's really hard to sustain.
Well, now more than ever.
Yep.
How much money is available in our community to support both of these programs?
While all these other teams are being supported, the sports marketplace has never been more crowded with the addition of hockey. Businesses have got to decide, where am I putting my budget? Utah football, Utah basketball, they got everybody knocking on the door. BYU football, BYU basketball, NBA team, NHL team, MLS team,
the new
maybe
women's
MLB.
volleyball league has started.
Women's volleyball, AAA baseball. Just go on down the list. There's a lot of people knocking on the door. How about some money?
Yeah. But if you win big time, you're knocking on heaven's door.
Knock. 3. It's the rule of 3. There's a certain...
Yeah. So are there enough resources willing to support and able to support. Willing is one thing, being able is another.
And you need both.
Right.
You could be able and not willing.
I dropped $20 at a Sun Angel Foundation going to the Peach Bowl.
Had a kid. You got to reward them when they get to those double-digit win seasons.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I upped it to 20. I gave him a 20 this time.
Nice.
Before, it was a 5.
Here's a crisp 20.
But now...
Well, you're at a different place in life now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When they went to the Rose Bowl, it was much younger. That one time they called that they went to the Rose Bowl. We're living in L.A., right? We're only married a year or two. And some gal calls me, and I'm just carrying on with her. And so my wife would run the checkbook, and we cut him a check. I did give him some money, right? And then, you know, how you have the reason, and then they should flirting with an ASU fundraiser. She put down as the reason. I kept her on the line like 20 minutes. And now they can't get me. I mean, they call 3 times a week for 30 years, but I don't have a home line anymore.
Cell phones make it tricky.
Yeah. And now if your number isn't programmed in, I don't pick it up.
That is a common behavior.
Leave a message.
Yeah.
And then if it's a spam, block.
And it's usually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I hardly get any calls. If I ever get a call, gosh, what's wrong? Who died? I start panicking the second I look at it if someone's calling me, because nobody ever calls you. They text you. Mm-hmm. You call me sometimes, but you like to chat or something just comes in your mind, and so I always try to pick it up. If I have the phone and you call, I pick it up because it's normally not bad news. We haven't had bad news at this job in a long time.
Yay!
People are being spread thin. That's what I've always felt about this NIL is the Eccles give them X amount of money and they build that beautiful facility. Well, then it sits there for years and years. Well, that's covered. But you're asking the fans to fund the teams year after year after year?
Yes, that's exactly what is happening.
Is that sustainable?
That's
man?
why it helps to have people have what my grandmother used to call mad money.
Yeah, but even still, every year, over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you got to have millions.
That was the point of the booster at BYU who said doctors and lawyers can't do this. It's a good thing the tech thing took off.
If I give you $100,000, that's a lot of money, but it's also nothing in terms of funding an athletic team. It's not. Maybe down some of the non-revenue sports. I don't know what they're doing there for the tennis team or whatever. Maybe that's good enough. I don't know. But I told you, speaking to an athletic director down in Vegas last year for football, and he's telling me that his baseball team is getting plucked by an SEC team, and they're given to be a backup to provide depth, and they're going to give him $300,000. Mm-hmm. And he's projected not to be a starter, but they want to have depth in case something happens.
The cost of playing poker. Yeah. That's the reason you see a College World Series that used to have 8 teams from 5 or 6 different leagues, and now it's 8 teams from 2 leagues.
So if I give $100,000, that's nothing.
It was all ACC and SEC. And if your team and your league aren't all in like that, the rest of you, the rest of yous,
and that's luck. Where this quote-unquote punch and Judy hitter is going. Or
going to an ACC or SEC school.
Yeah, it's SEC. Right. Yeah. And this athletic director, we're talking. Mm-hmm. He's telling me about
and this is the new reality.
Yeah.
And we could come up with $300,000 for the baseball coach to keep him, but I'd have to take it from the football or the basketball coach.
And do I want somebody I'm going to give $300,000 to somebody who's really not that good?
Probably wouldn't even, if you give it to baseball, wouldn't even give it to that baseball player.
Right, exactly. That's my point. Yeah. Right.
But this is the cost of doing business.
They weren't
now.
all that upset losing the kid. Mm-hmm. He was just talking about the
new reality,
the financial world. Yeah, that they can just come. Oh, we're going to take him. And
what's a kid supposed to do? Say no to $300,000?
Yeah.
Seems unlikely.
Yeah. Oh, he wasn't beefed at the kid, beefed at the other university.
He was amazed at how
explaining the situation.
Yeah, amazed at how quickly the college world had changed.
Right.
5 years ago, this wasn't a thing, and look at us now.
And this is an AD, and it was during the lunch break, and we're chatting, and we start talking, and that's where we went with the conversation, and I'm like, looking, what are we gonna do? Yeah. So I wonder, can you be really good at both? And what's your emphasis? It seems like you have no choice. If you're in administration, and we've created this either or, and I don't think it's as clearly defined as we're creating it in talk radio here, throwing it out, but just for the sake of argument, have it be that way. You're putting your money in football because that's where you're going to get your biggest return. You have to. Unless you decide we're just going to have a football program and do the best we can. I can remember when the NIL just started, whatever, just a few years ago, and Ray Anderson, who was the AD at ASU, ran it in the ground. He makes a statement with Herm. Oh, we're not going to go down that road. We're about development, and we're going to develop these players so then they can go on and have the life skills, and if they're good enough, make the money in the NFL. And look at our athletic program. We're not just a football. We have 26 sports. They offer 26 sports, which is the most in the Big 12. We're a comprehensive athletic program. So he's given this speech, and I'm hearing it, and the only thing I'm hearing, oh, you're going to suck in football. That's what he's saying. He's trying to cover it up by using all this blah, 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 blah crap. Right. Comprehensive. Great for you. That's nice. That's good. And everybody in junior high gets a trophy. That's great.
And I want it to be comprehensive, and I want the comprehensiveness to start with football.
And we're not going to go down that road. You're going to suck. And then what do? They had the 2 worst years ever in the 80-year history of the program.
And then they had a change in leadership.
And they start getting some more cash into it, along with other stuff. It wasn't just cash to go. And then 2 years later, they're having one of the best seasons they ever had. And now they know. And after the last game of Dillingham's first season, he's in the press room. They get worked by the U of A, and he says, they ask a question, what's next? This is on the Saturday. The season's over. He says, well, my coaches are going to go out and recruit, and I'm going to do 3 things. Fundraise, fundraise, and fundraise. That's what he said.
That's the job.
Yeah.
And how's it working?
And he's a new kid on the block, so to speak, so he ain't complaining about what it used to be because he didn't have any experience. So this is the new world.
The Athletic has a story as far as Utah and the investment in the basketball program and the either or and the how do you fund both. And I'm reading from the story in The Athletic. As for the school itself, per U.S. Department of Education data from 2022-23, the most recent year for which it's available, Utah spent $12.8 million on men's basketball expenses, which ranks 23rd nationally among public institutions. That's 1 spot behind Alabama, which made the Final Four last season, and 2 ahead of Michigan, one of the most prominent brands in the sport. The university also opened a $36 million practice facility in 2015, which is among the newer and nicer at the high major level. Translation, the university itself has resources, but needs to find a way to fundraise if it wants to recruit winning talent. Easier said than done.
Right.
That's good. You spent a lot of money. Now you need the NIL money on top of it.
Right. Yeah.
But you can't do it. And they go into the story, are they going to go down the same road as BYU, bring in someone from the NBA? That's where everybody's looking. Are they going to bring in their version of Kevin Young? Which, if you look at the 4 names who are former Utes, who are, have the qualifications for this job, they've got the resume. 3 of them are coaching in the pro game, and 1's coaching at the college level, and that's Burgess. And the other guys are all in the pros. So there is money there, and they could still go outside the program, obviously. So there are the candidates. What will Mark Harlan do?
Yeah, I'm not adverse to them going outside of the program, but I think they got to win. I don't care. Get a gorilla, get a chimpanzee, get a lion, get a tiger. I don't care who you get. Just win.
How about a giraffe?
Get a giraffe. Oh, yeah. Then you have a rim.
Long neck,
Yeah.
rim protection.
Get whoever. Get a dog. Really.
Now you're talking.
Yeah. Give me a grinding dog who's going to unturn every stone. That's what you need.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, Tim LaComb, Jazz analyst for SEG Media. He was on Rick Majerus' staff at the U. And Dave Rose, assistant coach. He was there with Dave sitting next to him on the bench at BYU. We'll talk with him about the U coaching search next. Stay with us. DJ, PK, and we're joined now by Tim LaComb, Utah Jazz analyst for SEG Media. Tim, good morning.
Good morning.
So, Tim, you wear many hats. We hear you on Jazz broadcasts. Obviously, you know Ryan Smith from your time at BYU. You wear the Cougar hat because you're assistant to Dave Rose. And back in the day, you were on Rick Majerus' staff at the U. Can you take off the Jazz and Cougar hats for a moment and put on the Ute hat?
Okay, it's a beanie at this time of year. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, hold on. Let me grab it. Good.
There is a lot of support for Alex Jensen. Clearly, we've heard from people. There are also other qualified candidates who've got the resumes that would certainly make you a strong candidate. Whether it got you the job or not always depends on a bunch of different things. Assess some of the candidates and who you like and why.
Well, it gets interesting because three names that get thrown around out there often: Alex, Andre, Johnny. I had the opportunity to work with up there. So it's like family, it's like talking about your family. And so I'm going to kind of lump the alumni guys into one bucket. I think obviously the poll for, somebody like Alex, kind of goes back to the glory days. And, he actually saw the Huntsman Center full a lot. I think that whatever move's made, I think that's obviously got to be number one, is what kind of energy / support can the candidate bring? And I think that's the day and age we're dealing with now. It's not as much, can this guy really go out there and coach? But like there's more multi-aspects, to it. It used to be, guy could work the boosters, but it's way more than that now. You've got to really have somebody's kind of somebody's going to draw. And I think that's what Al would do in terms of talked to a couple of people yesterday that were associated with Utah. And, they're like, well, it would revive my interest, just, the mere mention of it because of the pull back to those days. So, I think that he is certainly somebody who's really qualified. Johnny Bryant's a guy's names come up often, and his track record's crazy. When I was at BYU, Johnny was doing a lot of work, working guys out as they came through town, that sort of thing. But man, he's now on, Cleveland's bench and he's the associate head coach there. So that's another name. And then of course, Andre Miller is a G League head coach. And so for a lot of reasons, those three guys' names come up. And I think, like you said, I've probably heard Al's name as much as anybody's.
The big thing for me is you can get any of those guys, and that's great. I would love to see Alex get involved back with the Utah program. I believe in him and his ability to understand the game pretty much as anybody. But how about the resources? Because you have to pay these kids this NIL, and you got BYU, a booster, running his mouth saying you will not outbid us. How are you going to be able to compete with that?
Well, I think that that's going to be a big component. And whoever decides to come here, there's got to be kind of a plan between the coach in terms of the things that they can bring. And then I think obviously the university's got to, they've got to get involved. It's a difficult time right now because obviously everybody's trying to raise money for every school. I don't know how long this lasts, first and foremost. I don't know how long they can keep doing creating money to give to guys for 8 months at a time. So we'll wait and see kind of on the sustainability of NIL. But right now, whoever comes in either needs to certainly have a plan in place in conjunction with the schools. Schools got to have more of a plan. I mean, one thing, I watch things closely, like marketing, for instance, for Utah basketball. There's a random billboard. There's some things on social media. But there's just, I think there's got to be some lengths gone to understand why people have not been. And it's not simply just solely winning and losing. I mean, it's kind of lost the environment. So I think there's got to be a lot of infrastructure discussion as well.
Okay, you want to put on the Utah Jazz hat?
Yes, hold on. It is also a beanie. Okay, it's secure.
The Utah Jazz sit 5 guys that play a Portland team, which is PK points out at 12-5 in the last 17 games. That's a pretty good chunk of time, almost a quarter of a season. They're good. The Jazz are sitting so many key vets, playing so many young guys who essentially are third-string guys, and it's a 2-point game. How many of these young guys are figuring it out, and how good would the Jazz be if they were actually playing everybody and trying to win games?
What's crazy is I think that, the 2 young guys in particular that are showing major steps, and I think it comes on the heels of Flip having such a nice night. But, Flip had a great night. He had a night that, from my understanding, is pretty historic in the NBA to get 20 over 10 rebounds and go 4 for 4 from 3. That was pretty awesome for Flip. I think his understanding over the last couple of weeks has really grown. His ability to see the play has always been there, but more and more now he's able to kind of go make the play. Isaiah Collier, his emergence has really changed the game. I think he instantly, once he kind of got the range and kind of understood it, he was able to play through a lot of those early turnovers, and now he's just an assist machine. But more importantly, I think he's increased the pace which the Jazz play. Outlet passes, defensive rebounding to offense is a real advantage for teams, and the Jazz are really taking advantage of that because Collier's his burst and his vision. So I think those 2 guys in particular are figuring it out. But, Jake and I were talking on the last post-game show, Jake Scott and I, that this really has evolved into a way better team. And we've seen that with Will Hardy's teams year over year. And I think that's one thing to kind of be excited about. With that, there's still 26 games left. So I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities for young guys and new guys to kind of play some different roles. We'll probably see different starting lineups most nights. And, but I think you hit it on the head. I think the development of the young guys, Cody Williams as well, obviously had a big game the other night, and his body's starting to change. And I think that's going to be the bellwether for him when he's bigger and stronger, and he's now got the know-how. I mean, he's understanding what's going on. He just a lot of times can't react. So as his body changes, he's going to continue to have success. And I think the Jazz have done a really good job selecting guys that fit.
We had on Ryan Smith the other day, and he brought up before they started to play after the break, said, well, we're probably going to see Cody Williams a lot more, which is his way of saying we're going to see Cody Williams a lot more. And to me, as I look at him, following him in Colorado, he's a young guy. They had a veteran team and a couple guys that had seniority, so he was a secondary player. Then he comes in here, and he's a kid with a skinny body and all that stuff. Now, as you say, his body's changing, and it's a work in progress. The thing that I loved the other night was just that he acted like he belonged, and that's what I want to see the remaining last portion of the season. I just want him to feel like, hey, I belong, and I'm not taking a back seat to anybody anymore. Now, that doesn't mean you just go out and jack it up like Keontae George does most games. But it was more about, I'm going to make the play. If the play is to pass, set a screen, whatever it is. But don't be timid anymore. Just play like you belong. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's a great observation, and I think that comes with confidence. I look at him, his first couple games, and he had a hard time navigating space to get a catch, and so really he's made some big strides as a young guy, and certainly the upside with his body change and everything else will be exciting to watch. I mean, if you want something to look at right now, he can't play, but look at Taylor Hendricks and the difference in Taylor Hendricks from draft night to today, and his body has changed, in a crazy way. He got his boot off this week too, so he's making progress. But I just think with all the losing, it's easy to get lost in that, and there are a lot of really good things going on that will pay dividends down the road. But right now, this is kind of that, this is that stretch time.
All right, why don't you wrap up with the Cougar beanie?
Okay, it's royal blue and it's on.
Since losing to Utah, they've won 8 out of 10. They've taken down Arizona and Kansas. And it doesn't really matter if Arizona and Kansas are the best version of Arizona, Kansas, a very good version, an okay version. You took down Arizona and Kansas. That's exciting. Are things as good as they look? Because we always hear, well, it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. Is it as good as it seems?
I would say yes. And, I want to give KY and the staff a ton of credit. That team was not playing very good about 6 weeks ago. And, I talked about a little bit. We talked about them lacking a little bit of an identity. And, again, I think sometimes you get a new group together and roles have to, they have to kind of happen. Coaches can't necessarily from day one reinforce all the roles, and that kind of evolves over the season. And I think what everybody's kind of now done is fit nicely into a role that, Kevin has kind of set for them. You're seeing guys bring it, seeing defensive guys bring the defensive energy. I think one of the pivotal things for them has been the shooting of Mag. I think his three-point shooting has been massive. And in that Arizona game the other night, it was big shots from everybody, And so I think it's a great story. I think that they're really starting to, like as you want to kind of gel at the right time. I think there's a ton of confidence, and I think they have a guy that I think everybody understands, like Richie can go win us a game. I think that was always a question, is where do you go at the end of a game? Yegor's getting better, understanding situations. And, there's a lot of team dynamics when guys aren't playing that, their people think they should be. And now those people have, a couple $100,000 in their pocket too. But they're trying to turn that into double it next year. So everybody's playing for something way more tangible. I mean, before you played for school pride, you played for winning. Everybody's now playing for that and, well, probably not as much that, more of the other stuff. But as a coach, you got to figure out a way to get them to play for whatever. And I think their staff's done an unbelievable job in a 6-8 week period of kind of redirecting the course, tailoring the rotation, and like you said, going out and just having great success.
In almost 100 years, literally every athletic director at BYU has been a BYU employee who got promoted. So Brian Santiago's sitting there, and Tom Homo calls him his wingman, his right-hand guy. He's been Tom's guy for 15 years now or so. I expect him to get the job of athletic director. Do you think that's accurate?
Again, I got a ton of people that I know there and love, but, Brian, I do have to say that Brian was a game changer for our basketball team. We got to a point early, I guess probably after our Sweet 16 run, and during that run, I guess the school did a great job, and it was because of Brian. Brian really got our travel situation figured out. When we entered the WCC, the league changed to this. It was crazy scheduling. It was like Wednesday, Saturday, and you were home, you were away. And we needed a little bit more, less variable in our travel. We need to be able to kind of count on it more. That's just one thing, but Brian went out and kind of created an entire charter program. And I think he just sees big. He sees big things. He's connected all his time in the sports world, kind of like myself. I think at BYU sometimes you can go hide under a rock, or you can go out and make friends from other places. And I think Brian's got a lot of friends around the country. I know that boosters really like him. So I would think it would probably go in that direction. But you got other people, to consider as well. And, but I love me some Brian Santiago.
We've run through all the beanies. Thank you so much, Tim. We appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Have an awesome day.
All right. We'll hear you tonight on the broadcast.
Thanks.
Utah Jazz tonight playing the Sacramento Kings, and Tim will be on the air with Jake Scott at 6 o'clock, and then the game tips off at 7 o'clock here on The Zone. DJ and PK, Jeff Judkins, former Ute player and assistant coach, joins us at 9 o'clock. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Josh Grant, Utah Ute legend, joining us right now on JJ and Alex.
To me, there's one name they need to recruit the heck out of: Alex Jensen. There's nobody out there who has experience working with Rick Majerus, who understood basketball and could teach basketball as well as anybody in the country. He understands how Utah works. He understands the psychology of basketball. He understands how to get guys to play in the NBA. He understands basketball. He understands discipline. He understands defense. He understands the importance of playing together. He can coach that. He can teach that. I don't know that there's too many other people that get all those things that would want this job.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that...
And he's stealing my line.
I know. The Hercules Salt Lake County High School Players of the Week are Sophie Nielsen and Bradley Easton from Brighton High. Nielsen tallied 25 points and 15 boards in the Bengals' 61-51 win over Viewmont to advance to the 5A quarterfinals. Easton powered the Bengals boys team into the 5A quarters as he led them past Hunter with a 16-point outing and then scored 23 in a 66-49 win over Wasatch. At Hercules, they're celebrating the everyday victories. Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. You listen to Tim talk about the Ute coaching search, and we'll talk with Jeff Judkins here in a minute, who's obviously been invested in the Utes from a very young age, despite the fact he coached at BYU for a long time. He's got quite the perspective on the program. You listen to Tim, and he knows everybody, so he's careful about what he says, but reading between the lines, you come away with anything else or just reinforce what you already thought?
As far as which avenue you're going down?
Which?
Coaching?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of emphasis and push for Alex Jensen. He meets the criteria, I believe, of what you're looking for. And especially, BYU and Utah, more than ever, are so interlocked. They would like to be separate, but they're not.
Right.
And BYU made a big, big deal out of the pro model and bringing in Kevin Young. And it's not hypothetical, even though it is, until they actually put somebody in the NBA. It's all talk. You haven't done it yet. But he says it's not hypothetical. So do you then follow, right? Utah gets the lottery ticket to the Pac-12. So they leave the Mountain West. What does BYU do? They leave the Mountain West. Right? And now here they are back in the same conference. As much as they try to, you can't quit me. So you wonder. And to BYU's credit, Kevin Young looks like he's the real deal. So I sort of make fun of it that, he claims it's not hypothetical. Well, until you put somebody in the NBA, it is. But they're going to put people in the NBA. There's no doubt about it. So really, it's not. And do you think that is something that caught your attention? And I don't have any problem if they think, yeah, that's the way to go. That's the right move. I mean, you find someone who's doing something well, why wouldn't you copy it? The Spurs, so we want to be like the Jazz. And Whittingham is sitting down. Dillingham and I are standing up. I can touch Kyle because I was just sitting down with him. And the SID, Sports Information Director, brings over Dillingham for me to meet him because we've known each other for decades and he knows I'm a devil. And so Dillingham's practically touching the back of Kyle's head. I want to build a program like him. And he's pointing down. Yeah, so I don't have any problem with that. Copying something that you believe works, you'd be foolish not to do it if it's available to you, and it is available to you right here. Now, are you going to then go all the way in that regard and blah, blah, blah? We'll see. But right off the bat, hiring an assistant, as BYU did just about, 10 months ago, they want to do it would be ironic in a sense, but these two schools are interlocked. They're intertwined.
This happens so often. Yeah.
You can't go one without the other.
And they both benefited from it.
Yeah. Now look at their coaching staffs.
Chris Hill was talking about a friend of his who'd been at Ohio State, went to San Diego State, and he knew I rooted for the Aztecs, and he knew that was just torture at times, more often than not. I think this is before they got basketball going too. And the guy was there and it didn't go well and he left. And Chris told me later, he said, I asked him, what is the deal there? Now you've been there, you're good, you did all this, you'd been at Ohio State. And he's like, never underestimate the value of having a rival. There's someone to drive you. Ohio State and Michigan have each other, BYU and Utah have each other. San Diego State doesn't have that. And it motivates people. And when things go wrong, get you back on the beam. We can't lose to those guys. It gets everybody motivated.
Yeah.
It provides a lot of energy. And the guy's like, man, never underestimate that.
Right.
All right, DJ PK, when we come back, Jeff Judkins, former Ute player, former Ute assistant coach, joins us next to talk about the changes up on the Hill. It's a Win Tickets Wednesday. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE, wins a family 4-pack of tickets to the Salt Lake Off-Road Expo at the Mountain America Expo Center this weekend. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE.